Hello people, today I'm redoing a ranking of all 11 Wizarding World films. With the new Fantastic Beasts film, Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, releasing into theaters last week, I figured I might as well do a ranking. I have not done a ranking of these movies, and before I get into the ranking, I want to discuss the fact that I've read the first 4 books. I've read part of Order of the Phoenix. I just haven't continued it. I don't want to say it's a bad book because from what I've read, it's not a bad book. It's just I'm really bad at reading books. I'm just not good at, making sure I get them read. So, yeah, I've read up to that point. So I've read a good portion of the series. And Harry Potter, like, growing up, I've watched these movies quite a bit. Not as much as, like, a diehard fan, but enough for me to call myself a fan. For me to have a Pottermore account to know that I'm a Hufflepuff and all that. So I like the series as a whole. And now, with the Fantastic Beasts film, let's get into the ranking. Coming in at number 11 is universally everyone's number 11, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. This is the most boring and unbearable film, and easily the only, truly bad film of this series. This film was an absolute misfire in almost every way. When it comes to the script that J.K. Rowling wrote, mostly, sadly, this is really a J.K. Rowling mess, and has nothing to do with the controversy about her with her stupid tweets and all that. I really don't care about that. It really is a big mess of a script that she wrote, because she wrote this book. Wrote this movie like it was a book. It feels like a book, and watching a movie, it feels like you're reading a really, really long book, and a lot of it is just going over your head. But here's the thing: it's a movie. Not really much goes over your head because not enough happens. There's a lot of little subtleties in the script. For example, in the very beginning of the movie, Jacob Kowalski's character is very afraid to tell Queenie that she thinks what she did is crazy. At the end of the movie, he just straight up tells her, like, come on, this is crazy. Like, little things like that, to where it could mean a lot if it was done better, but it wasn't enough, because you have so many storylines in this film. It can't really step back and focus on one specific one. It feels directionless. By the time this movie ends, it doesn't feel like much of anything has happened. The most of what happens in this movie is contained within the opening scene where Grindelwald escapes, because not much happens after that. It's a series of storylines and reveals that don't either mean much to you. There's one big dialogue exposition dump about Lita Lestrange and the Lestranges and all that, and it's one big exposition dump, and it's unbearable. You don't care, and it's funny, and most of it is funny because of how Secrets of Dumbledore handled the whole Strange thing in the future. Crimes of Grindelwald is easily the worst of this series. Next up, I want to be talking about number 10. And number 10 is Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. I don't completely dislike this movie, but it's still another film where by the time it ended, I was like, okay, the movie ended in such a strange spot, because it's a spot where it's a spot where it could end the Fantastic Beasts films if they were really wanting to end it, but it's a spot where, like, that's it. So if this were the last one, I'm just like, that's it? And if this were to not be the last film, I'm like, where are we going from here? And I know that sounds like it's contradicting itself, but what's so frustrating about these Fantastic Beasts films is that it doesn't know what to do with itself. It's such an identity crisis of a series. So it's so much story, but yet too little when it comes to key things like characters and how you fit them into the storyline. And that's something that this series has really struggled to do. And so when it comes to this film, where it just kind of felt strange to me, because I feel like we're forcing these characters into situations they might not even be in, just because they're characters in the movie. We're forcing it into this Grindelwald Dumbledore storyline that doesn't feel connected at all, because there's a couple side quests. It's not side quest heavy as the previous film, but it's enough to where it kind of felt distracted at some points. This film replaced Johnny Depp's Grindelwald with Mads Mikkelsen's Grindelwald, which I enjoyed. I thought he was really good in the role. Jude Law I really like him as Dumbledore, and the characters individually I like. I'm just frustrated by the way it's handled. Tina is in this movie for under 3 minutes, and I don't want to get into J.K. Rowling, what happened with the actress in her, but to me it just feels a little weird that the fact that her role was ridiculously reduced this much in the film after what was all said. And I don't like with the direction this movie, well, I don't like the way Crimes of Grindelwald handled Queenie, and this movie kind of backpedals quite a bit on those storylines. And this movie does a lot of patchwork, and the movie has a couple like really standout scenes, like the battles, like the wand fights, the duels, I should say, are really good. There is a couple scenes where I was like, "That's some cool wand action. That was some nice little eye candy." Throughout, where I was at least entertained. But by the time the movie ended, I was just kind of like, eh, because it's not a particularly satisfying end, because it feels kind of anticlimactic once the film wraps up, because it goes in the most cliche way possible. In the way it wrapped up it kind of wrapped up a couple storylines so far, and it just felt all so underwhelming. So, yeah. Coming in at number 9 is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I am so sad that I am putting these films, like, it's clearly bottom 3 are these films, and top 8 are the Harry Potter films. And I don't want it to seem like I just have a thing against these Fantastic Beasts films. It's just how I feel about them. I was never going into any of the Fantastic Beasts films saying, this is going to be at the bottom. In fact, I went into Secrets of Dumbledore saying, please, I want to like this more than Chamber of Secrets. At least be better than one of the Harry Potter films. I want to like these movies. It's just, when this series started, I'll say the last 30 minutes of Fantastic Beasts, I really enjoy. I think it kind of captured the magic again, and that's the closest these movies have gotten to recapturing the Harry Potter magic that I felt. And the last 30 minutes of Fantastic Beasts really captured that. But the rest of the film, from beginning to, like, the first 80% of the movie, it lacked it. And it's a nice introduction to a lot of characters, but you can't help but see the parallels of what they were doing with the Harry Potter films and say Harry Potter did it better. And it's because we're so much time later after the Harry Potter films were released, and you expect something not better, but to at least feel something again, to make it at least feel necessary. And for these films to introduce itself in a mediocre way and play out the way they have so far, this film can be just a little frustrating. The visual look of this, I'm not in love with. I think some of the CG work they did with New York, I didn't really like the visuals. I think it looked kind of dull. I think it had a little bit of that Half-Blood Prince problem with like the coloring at moments. And that's one thing I'll give Crimes of Grindelwald and Secrets of Dumbledore a little thumbs up on, is that I think it vastly improved visually compared to the first film. Because Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, I was not impressed with the visuals at all. And even though it is probably my favorite of the Fantastic Beasts films, and not a movie I dislike, I think it's, like, it can be frustrating at moments, but overall it's an okay watch. Coming in at number 8 is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This is the second film directed by Chris Columbus, and this film is the Harry Potter film where you love these characters so much, and you're the second. I know it's just the second film in, but I love Chris Columbus's vision for these Harry Potter films. But what draws this one back is I'm not in love with the Chamber of Secrets book, and this film has those problems where I just thought it was a little too plotty. And this is the longest of the Harry Potter films, where the plot just felt a little, like, okay. Like, I wasn't in love with the story that they went with for this installment, and it's so hard. Maybe I'm, like, nicer to these installments, because with J.K. Rowling running the Fantastic Beasts films, they weren't books first, they were just films. And maybe I'm a little nicer to Harry Potter because they were books first and they had to get from that source material. But at least they captured the Harry Potter magic again. The child actors did a pretty good job this time around, but it just felt a little bit of a repeat compared to the first film, even though it's still a very enjoyable film with some really good bits. Coming in to number 7 is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This is a film that I pretty much enjoy. I really just enjoy all the Harry Potter films. Half-Blood Prince What draws this back is not necessarily the fact that nothing happens, it's just not as memorable. And this movie does have memorable moments, but it's a very talky film. It's a film that sets up stuff for the last two installments of the series, but it's also a film that takes a step back and focuses on the characters and what they're up to. And if you're not binging these movies and you just watch this one randomly, it might not work. When I rewatch these films, I just binge them. So the ones that I thought were just okay, when you binge them, you enjoy them a lot more, I noticed. And this film really just takes a step back and focuses on these characters, why we love them, and sets back this, shows you the stakes of losing one of these characters, and it shows you beautifully at the end with the death of Dumbledore. And if you're watching this list, you know Dumbledore dies. It's not a spoiler, but well, it is a spoiler, but if you're watching this list, you know it. So yeah, it's a film I enjoy. It might slog at moments, but this movie has a lot of really personable moments that only a film like this could have properly pulled off without it feeling a little out of place or sluggish in a fast-paced Harry Potter film. So this film was a change of speed, a change of pace, but it was ultimately, I think, a solid installment into the series that, at the end of the day, it was nice to have these character moments in this film, although not a lot might happen. So yeah, coming in to number 6 is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. When I was most recently rewatching this film, about 20 minutes into the movie, I was like, oh god, am I about to have a hot take? Because I thought the first 20 minutes of this movie were like really jarring and a little all over the place. I was in love with the editing, and I was just like, oh god, what are we doing? But as the movie went on, it vastly improved. Once we get into the Triwizard Tournament, I think is what it's called. A lot of that it's a lot of fun. And by the time you get to the end of the movie, you're like, oh crap, what just happened? You just killed the Batman? Okay. But even though it's a fairly dark movie at moments, it also has a lot of comedic elements to it. It actually might be the funniest of the Harry Potter films, because these characters are getting older and they have crushes and they have like the best like winter ball, and it's the most hilarious sequence of all the Harry Potter films. I die laughing while watching it. And even though the comedic things lean very heavy, and I do like the comedic moments, sometimes we go from really like comedic fun to Triwizard Tournament and it's really dark, and sometimes you have those tonal shifts, and it was very jarring for me. But it's still, at the end of the day, this is still a film I really like, a really entertaining movie, and kind of like, even though you have those shifts in tone, almost like the most like fun watch back popcorn movie of the Harry Potter films, because you have these Triwizard Tournament, it's funny, you sit back, you watch it, and then you get the very jarring ending and not jarring in a bad way, jarring in a oh crap way. So yeah, coming in at number 5, and I'll just say number 5 and number 4 really surprised me on this list, but because of how much I put them up compared to what the list was like before. Coming in at number 5 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Like the Half-Blood Prince, it felt like a movie that's not necessarily a lot happens, and that's how I felt kind of before. But once I watched this movie again, a lot happens, it just doesn't have the payoff. That's why there's a part 2 to this, and I don't take back from this movie just because it doesn't pay off because there's a part 2, because when you look at the release schedule for this film, it was like almost like 6 months in between the two films, so it wasn't that long of a wait. It's not like they made one, then we have to go make another one, then finish it. So you watched it knowing there was a guarantee of a next film. So, and plus when you're binge watching it, that's what made this movie work for me a lot more this time around. Last time I watched this movie, before I was watching it in a binge, I randomly put it on. A lot of these films cannot work if you just randomly put it on. It really is one of those things you kind of have to watch it through all the way, because this movie, like Half-Blood Prince, has a lot of personal moments, but the reason why I like this one more than Half-Blood Prince is the fact because the story does increase in quite a bit, particularly towards the last act of the film, and you still have the plot with the ministry, corruption, a lot of themes like that, and so stuff happens in this movie. It's just not paid off till the next film, and so that's why this film really works, and it's I think one of my favorites of the franchise, because you get those deep personal moments that I really like in Half-Blood Prince, but the story also goes forward, even though like people complain, it doesn't conclude, but like I said, that doesn't bother me. So I really, really like Deathly Hallows Part 1. There's so many titles to this one. And yeah, oh crap, I said it was upper tier. It's a pretty good, like, I'm saying it's not number 5 as is if it's, I'm saying number 5's like number 1, kind of. No, I'm not. Coming in at number 4, probably the one that shocked me the most, I put up this high. I thought this was the most mediocre one, and I thought this was at the bottom of the list of Harry Potter films. I watched it again, and I really loved it, and that is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I believe this is the first film David Yates did, and wow, what a strong start. This movie was so good. I get it's not for everyone. Not a lot of people are in love with the story. I actually really like the story that they went with. I really like the I really just like the movie from beginning to end. I know someone said to me, like, well, is it just that you like the last third of the movie where stuff happens at the Ministry of Magic? I thought about it. I'm like, maybe. I thought about it more. I'm like, no, I like the whole thing. From beginning to end, when you have this storyline with Harry creating this team of wizards, like almost like Avengers sounding, in the school and just trying to sneak it away from the professors, even though Dumbledore kind of knows. And then you have the storyline with Dumbledore and him trying to defend Harry. Why can I say names? It's just a really, it's a fun Harry Potter film, but like Goblet of Fire, it ends on a very haunting note. And that's what I love about these movies, is that as the further they go along, the darker they get and the more mature they get. And that's a theme that they hit very well throughout all of these movies. And that's just honestly kind of what I love about these movies, is that they get more mature as they go, because it kind of like shows how you see the world from the age of an 11-year-old all the way to the point of where you're like around 18, 19. So I thought that really worked. The darkness of this one, the Voldemort Dumbledore duel at the end is just classic. It's the best wand fight of all the Harry Potter films. The inclusion of Sirius was done pretty well, even though I felt like we could have used a little bit more of their dynamic. Harry's and Sirius's dynamic, but Gary Oldman is really good in the role, and I cannot remember who they got to play Bellatrix, but she was great in this movie. Everyone is cast well, everyone gives such a strong performance, and I love Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. And I used to have this as a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and it bumped all the way up to a 4.5. Yeah, I surprised myself. So, coming in at number 3 is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This movie was, I think, a needed course correction to the series, even though I love Chris Columbus's artistic vision for these movies, the feeling of magic, and honestly, Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets are where I feel the magic the most. But like I said, Chamber of Secrets, was way over long, and I didn't love the story that much. And so it needed a little bit change of pace, and they got, what's the name of the director? I can never pronounce it right. I'm about to embarrass myself. Alfonso Cuarón, yeah, I knew that. Alfonso Cuarón to direct, and he brought a new voice to this series. And while I'm not in love with everything about this movie, it's still like a drastic change, and I love almost everything else besides like a couple little nitpicks about what I have. And my 2 nitpicks is that I think some moments are a little forgettable, but besides that, I love this movie. Everyone talks about the way they included time travel at the end, and I think the Turner thing, can't remember the name of it, they did a great inclusion of that into the 3rd act. Although I know it's a nitpick, I felt like there were so many more opportunities we could use that in the future films, but they never really did it. This movie also explored a lot of personal themes to Harry Potter, and a lot of ones that I found very, very relatable, particularly with his felt of lost connection with family, the way he wants parents, and the way that he sees that almost in Sirius at the end. I thought there was a lot of really great themes there and stuff I found really relatable. And yeah, coming in at number 2 is I know I have this high for my list, but I love this movie, and it's the first Harry Potter film, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I love this movie. And I know once you get past like the first 45 minutes, the movie kind of slows down a little bit, but I don't care because I don't care if I'm biased. I love this movie so much. I love that it's an introduction. I love the introduction to the magic. I love the way how it's adapted from the book. Everything about this movie it's classic to me. I know nostalgia plays into it the most because I watched this one the most when I was little, but I don't care because it's the most magical feeling of all the Harry Potter films because it's the introduction. You get to know these characters. You feel, I just feel it, as you say in Tenet. It's a classic film. It's the one that's quoted the most, and I love it so much. And of course, the ending with the teacher twist. We've seen it before, but it's the first one to do it, so you can't. It's the first one to introduce that little cliche that we found ourselves in with the Harry Potter films. This is the most Hagrid you get in any of the movies, and he's one of my favorite characters. And there's so much like haunting imagery in this film that scarred me as a child, and it wouldn't scare me today, but I feel like a little kid again whenever I watch this movie. And there's a very, very few films that can do that, where I sit down and say, I feel like I'm 5 watching this again. It's like such a prominent film in my life, and that's why I love it. And coming in at number 1 is, I don't know if it's universally everyone's favorite, but it's my favorite. It's the final film, and it is one of the most emotionally satisfying films I have ever seen. It is actually on my favorite films list on Letterboxd. It's only movies I give 5 out of 5. This is the only Harry Potter film that's on my list, but deservingly so, because the way this movie the series wraps up is just so perfect. The movie goes by ridiculously fast, and I'm pretty sure the movie isn't short. Let me see the runtime 2 hours 10 minutes. So we've had longer Harry Potter films, but it's still, it goes by really fast, and it's the most like action heavy and the most fast paced, but it also has the most highs of all the films. One of my favorite characters is Snape, and he gets that time to shine moment where, well, it's mostly in the flashback, but once you get that reveal, and plus his character's death in this film, all of it is just so right, if that makes sense. And you would just really, really, really feel J.K. Rowling and her magic that she's able to put on to the books, into these movies, and it doesn't really have that last movie problem where you're like disappointed, like how the Star Wars films wrapped up, like how Game of Thrones. This is one of those, I don't want to say rarities, but maybe those rarities where things just wrap up perfect, like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, the Avengers series. And I get it's biased, and I know I probably it's not technically the best film here, but it's the one I love. It's the one I revisit the most. It's the one that just recaps these films and caps it off on such an emotional note. I can't help but put this at number 1. So yeah, comment down below your list. Can't talk. Comment down below your list of the Harry Potter films. I'm very curious to see which ranking it is, because I think Harry Potter is a very consistent franchise. It's really, if I didn't rewatch these movies and give them scores, I would have had a really, really hard time ranking these, particularly like the middle ones. Like, I knew that number 1 was going to be Deathly Hallows Part 2, and I knew the bottom 3 were going to be the Fantastic Beasts films. Well, bottom 4 were going to be the Fantastic Beasts films and Chamber of Secrets. Everything in the middle, I was not really sure. So I rewatched them, and it was well worth it. I love these movies. And yeah, like I said, there's only one truly bad film in the series, and we're 11 movies in. So yeah, comment down below, like I said, your list. I really want to see it, so because everyone's list is very different on this series. So yeah, anyways, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that, and adios.